started with a crackle, a faint, static-filled voice breaking through the silence of my car. I was driving home late, the kind of late where the roads are empty and the world feels like it's holding its breath. The radio had been off, I was sure of it. But there it was, a voice, desperate, pleading.
Please, someone, anyone, if you can hear me, I need help.
The voice was weak, trembling, like it was fighting to stay alive. I froze, my hands tightening on the steering wheel. My first thought was to turn it off. Maybe it was some prank, some weird late-night show, but something in that voice, it felt real.
I'm trapped. I don't know where I am. It's dark, so dark. Please, help me.
I glanced at the radio. The display was blank. No station, no frequency, just static. My heart started to pound. I reached out to turn it off, but the voice came again, louder this time.
Don't turn it off. Please, I can hear you. I can hear everything.
My hand froze. The voice wasn't just coming from the radio, it was in my head. I could feel it like a cold whisper crawling up my spine. I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat.
You have to help me. I don't have much time. They're coming.
They? Who's they? I wanted to ask, but the words wouldn't come. The static grew louder, filling the car, pressing against my ears. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The radio went silent. The display lit up, 87.5 FM, a station I'd never heard of. I pulled over, my hands shaking. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the radio, waiting for the voice to come back, but it didn't. The road was empty, the night silent. I told myself it was nothing, just my mind playing tricks, but deep down, I knew. That voice, it was real. The next night, I was driving home again, same time, same empty roads. I told myself I wouldn't turn on the radio. I wouldn't give in to the fear. But as the minutes dragged on, the silence became unbearable. I reached out, my finger hovering over the power button, and then, before I could stop myself, I pressed it. Static. And then the voice.
You came back. I knew you would.
My blood ran cold. It was him, the same voice. The same desperation.
You have to listen to me. I don't have much time. They're closer now. I can feel them.
I swallowed hard, my throat dry. This time, I forced myself to speak.
Who are you? Where are you? I don't know. I can't see anything. It's just dark, cold, but I can hear them. They're whispering. They're always whispering.
The static crackled, and for a moment I thought I heard something else. A faint, distant sound. Like laughter, but not human. Something wrong.
You have to find me, please, before they do.
Find him? How? I didn't even know who he was. But before I could ask, the static surged, drowning out his voice. And then, silence. The radio went dead. I sat there, my heart pounding, my hands gripping the wheel. I didn't know what to do. But I knew one thing. I couldn't ignore him. The next day I tried to find the station, 87.5 FM. I searched online, asked around, but no one had heard of it. It didn't exist, at least not in this world. That night, I drove the same route, hoping the voice would come back. And it did.
You're still here, thank you.
His voice was weaker now, barely a whisper. I could hear the fear in it, the desperation.
They're closer, I can feel them breathing. Please, you have to help me.
I didn't know what to say. How could I help him? I didn't even know where he was. But then, an idea came to me. A stupid, reckless idea.
Can you hear anything? Anything at all? A sound, a voice? Anything that might tell me where you are?
There was a long pause. Then, faintly, I heard it. A sound, a low guttural growl, and then a voice. But not his. This one was wrong. Twisted. It wasn't speaking, it was laughing.
You hear it? That's them. They're here.
The static exploded, filling the car with noise. I slammed my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. The laughter grew louder, more distorted. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The radio went silent, but this time the display didn't light up. It stayed dark. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that laughter. That thing. The next day, I decided to do something stupid. I drove to the edge of town, to an old abandoned radio tower I'd heard about. It was rusted, falling apart, but it was the only thing I could think of. If the voice was coming from somewhere, maybe it was here. The tower stood in the middle of a field, surrounded by trees. It was eerily quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your skin crawl. I got out of the car, my heart pounding. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I had to try. As I got closer, I heard it. A faint, static-filled voice. Not from the car, from the tower.
You're here. I knew you'd come.
I froze. The voice was coming from the tower. But how? I looked up, but there was no one there. Just the rusted metal, creaking in the wind.
They're here. They're watching.
I turned around, my heart racing. The field was empty, but I could feel it. Something was watching me. I could feel its eyes on me, cold and hungry.
Run.
I didn't need to be told twice. I ran as fast as I could, back to the car. But as I reached it, I heard it. That laughter. It was coming from the radio. I turned the key, but the engine wouldn't start. The laughter grew louder, filling the car. And then, the voice.
Too late. They're here.
I looked up. The field was no longer empty. Shadows moved in the trees, dark and shapeless. And then, I saw them. Figures. Tall, thin, their faces twisted into grotesque smiles. They were coming toward me, their movements unnatural, jerky. I turned the key again, and this time, the engine roared to life. I slammed the car into gear and sped away, the laughter echoing in my ears. I never went back to that tower. I never turned on the radio again. But sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet, I hear it. That static. That voice.
They're still here. They're waiting.
And I know one day they'll find me too.